folks. Hey, everybody, we are live, and I am excited to finally be here with two of our Zenny 62 Media greats, Bill Carroll, our NFL draft expert, Vinny Las Peloso, our NFL Hall of Fame expert, to celebrate and share in Vinny's experience having gone to the NFL Hall of Fame for the first time. I've never been, so
To celebrate.
and we're going to first of all just start off with, well, Vinny, first of all, tell us how this great experience happened for you.
Well, first off, for those that don't know, outside of NC2 Media, I've done stuff with Bill Carroll and other people at NowTheHallOfFame.com, ran by Kirk Buckner, amazing guy. And one of the people that helps us is a man by the name of Paul Lawrence, who's originally from Southern Ontario, but's lived the last 20 years of his life in Toledo, Ohio. And he's someone that's followed the Hall very, very closely for many years. And he's known that as someone as my age that is so interested in the Hall of Fame, arguably to a higher level than even he is, he said, "Hey, Vin, I'm going to be going to the Hall of Fame because I've wanted Chuck Howley for so long. You want to come with me?" And I said, "Are you serious?" And I said, "Yeah, hell yeah, of course. I how could I say no to this opportunity? I've wanted to go to the Hall of Fame my whole life. This means so much to me." And so I booked the tickets, and I was going to be there. I was going to go to the Gold Jacket dinner and ceremony, I was going to go to the enshrinement ceremony, the inductee on the Saturday, and then this Sunday we just kind of wrap things up, and I head off at night to go back home. So, but to get there was a little bit difficult. So I'm going to share my screen right now, if I'm able to.
What happened in getting there? Was flight gets canceled? I'm sorry, you're going to tell us, I guess.
Okay, so am I able to share the screen right now? If you
let me see here. You should be able to. 1 minute. Whoops. It should be up. Wait a minute. Full screen layout. There it is.
And okay, then, this is where I was in LaGuardia. It was on the flight to Cleveland, and I looked at the papers outside. But during this whole time, I was getting very, very excited. I mean, I was outside LaGuardia. I was getting very, very excited, first off. But then it started getting kind of gray outside with all the clouds. Uh-oh. And so as someone who was so scared, they said something that you never want to hear before you're about to enter a flight. The flight to Cleveland has been canceled. And I was absolutely frantic because I had no idea what I was going to do, because I paid a lot for, I paid a lot for the flight. I actually had to reschedule, and I wasn't even going to get my money back. And then I had, the Gold Jacket dinner, so I was like a little bit frantic. So I rushed as fast as I could to the desk, and I asked them when the next flight to Cleveland was going to be from LaGuardia. And they said it wouldn't be until 8 p.m., and they wouldn't get there until like 11. And I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And so I pleaded with this guy, and I said, I have to get here soon. It matters a lot. It could potentially help my job down the road. And he said, wait a second. Over in JFK, there's one seat left for a flight that goes off at 2:59. He booked it for me, and as soon as that happened, I ran all the way to the checkout area, got an Uber, and the guy that was there, I forgot his name. He was like an angel for me. He's someone that's been doing taxi driving and Uber for like the last 30 years. And he literally rushed and raced his car all around the little areas, even went through and swerved around near construction areas to literally get me to where I was.
You should have vlogged that, man.
I did do a vlog on that when I was in there, and I was literally worried. I was concerned. Oh my God, this is it. And so when I did that, I rushed all the way over there. I got my ticket for JFK. It was right outside there. Like, I spoke with them. I pleaded, and I was able to literally get me ahead. So, again, big props to the people of JFK that were able to get me to do that. And after running and running and running, I made it here. I made it to Cleveland, Ohio. I made it to the Cleveland, Ohio Delta in JFK. But at this point, here was a picture of me just before I was about to board the flight. Here it is. There I am. I was wearing.
It looked like there was anybody in the flight but you.
Yeah, it's because of the way it was. Also, for those that don't know the little detail, why am I wearing a black polo? Well, there's a big reason why. Zenny, as you know, that day was your 61st birthday, and I mostly know you as the guy that wore, black or even sometimes gray polo shirts. And I thought, a great way to show gesture to a man that helped shape and help mold my career would be to wear the shirt that I mostly know him for on the day of the gold
Vinny, that's
jacket ceremony. I think that would be a
wow.
So I thought that would be a nice
way
to
do
do
it. Everybody T-shirts. Zenny's. Thank you, Vinny. That's
yeah. And so after the flight,
wow.
So when the flight, I had some of the tea and the sun chips and everything. And I finally made it to Cleveland. There it is. And right outside is the Rock and Roll. They mentioned some of the stuff for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It was really fun.
Huh.
And then I have all these pictures right here. So once I was done with that, I said, "Oh my God! Now I need to find Paul." So I go outside here and I wait for him for a little bit. There's a lot of traffic that comes up. There's a lot of traffic that comes, and I'm waiting for Paul. And finally, I get him. And then once that happens, we go right all the way to the convention center. And before we do that, we look actually by the Hall of Fame. As someone who has grown up looking at this thing on my television for as long as I can remember, and as someone who has seen the iconography of the Hall of Fame so frequently that it honestly gets more attention from me than even watching the games itself. That's how connected I am to that building without ever even seeing it in person until that moment. So,
wow.
And then I make it to the convention center at the McKinley Room.
Let's see if we can get that a little bigger for you there. Put that on full screen. I got it. Actually, like that. There we go. Yeah.
So here's the convention center. You see Kermit and the other Hall of Famers. Okay, Kermit's not going in the Hall of Fame.
That's Kermit the Frog.
I'm Kermit the Frog here. I'm part of the parade for Canton, Ohio. Yeah. So, but here's the parade. I did not go to the parade. It was very hectic. But I go into the room, and you have the dinner. Everyone was already getting seated at that point, but because I got there a little late because of how big the traffic was, I had to eat my food. Quickly. Fortunately, they had some stuff. The woman there, I think her name was Claudette. Fantastic what she was able to do for me. The salad I got was really, really good. The steak was really nice and juicy, medium rare. The potatoes were really good. The the roasted asparagus was nice. And the cheesecake, everything tasted fresh. And I even drank some things of wine. I think I had 3 glasses, and I had to chug that stuff because I had to finish it quick. But
her name was Claudette?
I think her name was Claudette, I believe.
Did you get her number? No,
I was not able to because she's a volunteer in the Canton area. I believe that was the name. It could escape me. It was a whole rush and I also probably was a little drunk. So she was really, really nice, an older woman. Really, really nice woman. And so I'm in this room.
Wow, look at that.
There I am.
Look at that. That's huge. Look at this. Wow.
This was the actual room where they had, they were going to do the gold jackets. Sitting next to me was this woman.
Uh-oh.
I believe her name was Maureen. I believe. And She has gone. This was her 4th time going to the Gold Jacket ceremony.
Wow. What does she do that she goes there? She's a fan like you?
Yeah, she's from the area, and she goes there with her husband, and sitting next to me was a Buccaneers fan from Richmond, Virginia. His name was Champ. That's what he calls himself, and he was so excited for Rondé Barber. Now, as for the photos from this night alone, there's so much. Here's, the Jacket themselves. There's Rich Eisen. You can see Roger Goodell and Jim Porter. And you can see Fred Goodell and one of the people from Ken. There's also Jim Trotter that was also speaking. He got the Writers Award, a really prestigious one. And then they showed, and that's the third one. The third one's right here. When they were mentioning Fred Goodell winning a Roselle, which don't worry, there's some Roselle Award winners that do get bronze bust afterwards, but I don't know about him. But here he had Chris Collinsworth. I got a picture of him, the back of his head. You say, "Oh my God, that's actually Chris Collinsworth." And he also saw Jason Garrett right here, taking a video of it. His colleague.
I know Chris's agent. I was at I've twice been to their 16W Super Bowl parties. He and Phil Simms are two of their clients.
Oh, Phil Simms, my dad loves him.
And also Chris Simms. Chris is his son. So they are 3 of his clients. And Howie Long. Let's never forget Howie Long. Yes.
I'll get to him in a moment, but here's Dan Fouts. I actually got a chance to shake his hand just before I entered the little auditorium area, which was a surreal moment. Let the shake Dan Fouts' hand is not something you could say every day.
Yeah.
And he announces every single Hall of Famer that's alive and came there. So here's Carl Eller, here's Mel Renfro, and he shows so many. Here's I forget who this one. Here's Howie Long. Here's Michael Strahan.
I had breakfast with them, so I can say that.
Yeah. Well, here's Peyton Manning. There are so many. I think there was over 100 people.
Wow.
There was a lot. I can just all the way over here, like photo 6. There's still so many. I can just. This was Marshall Falk. This was Calvin Johnson.
Oh yeah. Hey folks, Calvin Johnson is featured, by the way, in on Zenny62 YouTube. All you have to do is type Calvin Johnson on our channel, Zenny62 YouTube. You can see my interview with him at the 2007 NFL Draft, and Chelsea Peters, along with Brady Quinn, and Bill Chakas was there, and holding court. We had a great time. I'm sorry, Vinny.
Yeah, and here's Dick Vermeil. There are so many just of this alone, but I'm not going to there are so many I took of this day alone, because just seeing all those people that were part of previous classes was just so much, and I had to take the photos. But then they finally stop, and this guy comes up, Steve Connell. This man, oh my God, he puts Dr. Seuss to shame. If you thought Walt Whitman was a master at poetry, you have to listen to how Steve Connell is. This guy was able to compartmentalize and hype up every single person into one poem that he wrote himself, and did not need a single teleprompter, didn't need any cue cards. He just said it all right on the spot with such immersing confidence and just he knows what he's doing on the spot. absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. I cannot praise him enough. There's a lot of photos of him. There's a lot more to him. But then they finally start doing the gold jackets. They start with Don Coryell, someone who unfortunately was the only, because they only have one non-player per year, which as a huge fan of non-players wanting to get in the Hall of Fame, that's disappointing for me, but at least there's one. And I'm very happy that it is Don Coryell, someone that people like myself have been demanding for ages, and he's finally getting inducted. This year was also special too, because after 60 years, the Hall is finally giving gold jackets and rings to the families of recently inducted Hall of Famers who are now deceased. So if this was done last year, Don Coryell's family would not have gotten that gold jacket.
Huh.
And the reason why is because there was some issues with wills. I mean, I can somewhat understand it, but I think at least at face value, it's a very stupid argument because it makes
it's a problem if you have a deceased NFL player and a will that's already been let, and then hey, someone's finally decides to induct that person in the Hall of Fame, but they have no knowledge of who was supposed to get what, and no copy of the will, and so you've got a relative that comes up and says, "Oh, by the way, that should go to me because, well, here's the document," and so you're stuck. So it was a good idea for the league to really get that out of the way as soon as it happens.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm happy they finally corrected that because as much as I completely understand it, at the same time, not having it kind of could be a bit of a bad look too. And I'm very, very fortunate that Mindy got a chance to hold her father's gold jacket, even though that he was never alive to see it. It doesn't mean that their families and the fans can't hold on to that and see the person they've wanted for so long get the honor of their life. Even if it's not in living, they should still be remembered and given the highest honor just because.
But Vinny, though, I'm going to challenge you on that one. For some people who choose to think this way, like myself, those folks don't die.
And, I agree. Like they don't
people actually try to talk to them and everything. So it's a good idea to get that out of the way.
Oh, I mean, physically deceased. Your spirit lives on. Your legacy lives on. That's what I mean. You don't. Your impact does not die.
No, what I mean is your spirit lives on in a non-corporeal fashion. You are alive.
Oh,
there are people who believe that. I'm not talking about like, oh, you're dead. I'm talking about people who actually believe that you are alive, period. I'm one of those people.
Well, I mean, in a way, you could say that with Don Coryell's bust, he's always alive. As John Madden once said, when you turn off the lights, the busts all talk to each other.
Well, no, but I mean beyond that. I mean, seriously, there are people who believe that your spirit never dies. That's why people go a long way with respect to their relation with the Holy Spirit. Lord, they go to church. There's a lot of incidents to prove that's the case. So, I work to respect that.
Oh,
because I guarantee you, Don Coryell has seen that jacket by now. I guarantee.
Oh, I'm sure he definitely has, and I'm very, very happy that he is still with us to see that jacket as he finally makes the Hall of Fame. And for Chuck Howley, this is someone my friend Paul.
Chuck Howley.
He wanted this guy in badly. Like, this was his most wanted dude not in the Hall of Fame. Everyone knows about Chuck Howley, knows about how deserving he was. And he finally made the Hall. He was not able to go there in person because he had dementia. And he was 86 years old. He declined in health. So his son Scott went up there and got the jacket on his behalf. He didn't wear it, though, because that was something that he wanted to save for his father, and I greatly appreciate that. And now, speaking of this, then we have Ken Riley,
Yay, number 13.
Now, there's many guys that I may have wanted, but this is a guy I actively campaigned for. In fact, I would argue that I played a huge role in getting this man inducted into Canton in the first place. As I spoke with his son, Ken Riley II, I spoke with other Bengals fans like Bengal Jim and Bengals Captain and Tom Justin and numerous other names that are Bengals fans that were at the forefront of pushing this man to make the Hall of Fame. And his story was unbelievable.
You want to tell it?
Oh, yeah. He grew up in Florida and went to Florida A&M. And as their quarterback, he won numerous, championships. But when he was drafted in the 6th round, mind you, the 6th round by the Bengals, they didn't need a quarterback. And also there was one other problem with him too. He was black. So they pushed him over as a cornerback. This, mind you, he never played this position in his life. And then he had a 15.
Hey, Bill, what are your thoughts of Ken Riley going in?
My own thoughts or Bill's thoughts?
Bill. I was asking Bill.
Oh, okay, great. Good. So you were asking me.
What are your thoughts on Ken Riley going to the Hall?
Oh, God. I've written extensively about this, and I wanted to induct him while he was still alive. It is incredibly disappointing that it took place as late as it did. I'm extremely happy that it did finally happen. And now his son, Kenny Riley Jr., and the rest of his family were able to, to say that this very deserving man who had never played one down, a cornerback in his life before he got to an NFL camp, had played quarterback from the time he was a child, all throughout high school, all throughout college at Florida A&M for the legendary Jake the Snake Gaither, and didn't even know when he got to camp that they were going to have him play defensive back. Had gone over initially to where the quarterbacks were because that's what he'd always played. And someone was like, nope, get over there. And he figured out well enough to be a multiple Pro Bowler, one-time first team All-Pro and also one-team second team All-Pro. And I would caution people to sort of take from that too much because he played in the golden age of the cornerback. I mean, he overlaps with Louis Wright, Mike Haynes. I mean, a very long list of
Mel Blount, and even his teammate who also should be in the Hall, Lamar Parrish.
Lamar Parrish, right?
Ken Riley, because he was in such a deep era of cornerbacks, especially in the AFC, and because Ken Riley as a personality was so calm, cool, collected, quiet. Ken Riley, unfortunately, never got a Pro Bowl in his career, which is a real shame. Because when he retired, he was 4th all-time in interceptions. Mind you, this man who never played corner in his entire life until he started to play for the Bengals, played 207 games, all at cornerback, and finished 4th all-time. Only one other person has surpassed him since. He's still in the top 5, and he retired 40 years ago. Think of that for a second. He is unbelievable. One of the most underrated legends in NFL history, bar none. Bar none in my eyes. And I was so happy for him. I was so happy for Ken and his mother. And they were showing the jacket around. I just was crying there.
Why did it take so long for him to get in?
It's because of a simple reason. He played for the Cincinnati Bengals. And for 25 straight years, until they inducted Ken Riley, there was only one person that was inducted into the Hall of Fame with primary association with the Cincinnati Bengals, and that was Anthony Munoz. Sure, you had guys like Paul Brown and Charlie Joyner, and you also had, Bill Walsh, who had stints with the Bengals, but they were primarily inducted.
He should have been the head coach.
Well, yeah, but even you also have Forrest Gregg, who was also in the Hall. But again, all those people were inducted primarily for their association with us.
I hate Forrest Gregg. Sorry.
Yeah, it's fine, but
I don't hate him, but
these are names of obviously those are names and that are already in the Hall, but they're not there primarily for their times with the Bengals. They're there for the times with the Niners or the Packers or other teams. But outside of Anthony Munoz, there was no one else. You don't have besides Ken Riley, you don't have Ken Anderson still. You don't have, Lamar Parrish. You don't have Willie Anderson. You don't have Corey Dillon. You don't have Chad Johnson. You don't have Curtis. There's a lot of names.
Hey guys, what do I click Katie Blackburn? If you don't know who she is, she's the executive vice president of the Bengals.
She's awesome. She is fantastic. Like everything that Jim has told me about her has nothing been but positive. So Katie, if you're listening to this, you're awesome.
She also goes back to my first NFL party, Wilson Cocktail Party, November 1st, 1999. Her, Dean Spanos, and I shared a table, and we all stayed in touch for a while. And then the last time I talked to Katie was last year in Atlanta, quite extensively. So my question is, what would you like me to tell her regarding how the Cincinnati can get more of its flock into the NFL draft? What has to be done?
You mean the Hall of Fame?
Yes, thank you. The Hall of Fame.
Well, first off, I'd say that Jim Foster, Bengals Jim, has done an amazing job already. He was like the guy in charge, spearheading this to make Ken in the Hall. And right now, they're working the groundwork to get Willie Anderson in, as well as Ken Anderson. And once they do that, they're going to try to go for like Isaac Curtis or Lamar
Let's
Parrish.
try this again. I'm talking about the executive vice president of the organization.
What
do they have? Right, the Katie Blackburn. So again, what would you like Katie to do in assisting?
Well, they've already started with the Ring of Honor, but I think what they have to do, if they want Ken Anderson in the Hall of Fame, which he should, retire number 14. Retire Kenny's number. No one should wear that number again. Retire the number. If you retire Ken Anderson's number, it's going to create attention to Kenny. It's going to make more people talk about him. He's going to generate buzz around the city of Cincinnati and the rest of Ohio and for the voters. Click in people's minds. Oh, Ken Anderson. He's been a finalist the last couple of years for the Hall of Fame. Let's put him in already. That's what you got to do. Retire Ken Anderson's number. Retire Ken Anderson's number. Retire Ken Anderson's number. That's what I would tell you to tell her. Retire Ken Anderson's number.
I will do that, definitely.
Yeah, so here's Ken Riley's.
I think Bill, do you have something you want to add?
I was going to say the other thing is to, rally their own, social media. And I don't think they have a team historian by name, but they have a lot of really interesting archived information about Ken Anderson. Mm-hmm. And I really circle his 1974 year because it's one of those years. It's like the year when Babe Ruth hit 60 home runs and the next person behind him hit 21. Look at the numbers on Ken Anderson. This is in essentially the dead ball era passing wise of the NFL. This is when a guy who, if he completed 58% of the passes, people are like, wow, right? And he surpassed 70% in completion percentage.
He was great.
On a team that had good, but really, other than the aforementioned Anthony Munoz, no other great players.
Ken Riley.
Kenny Riley, right. But, no other great. And, of course, Lamar Parrish is certainly a guy that we can debate. I think he was probably a great player as well. But other than those, they had very good players on that team, but really very few great players. And it was the age of the super team. That's the other thing that when Bean's talking about why so few of these Bengals have been some of them haven't even really been finalists, let alone, come close to being inducted. It was also the age of the super team. You had the Dallas Cowboys were in their, the dynastic period for them. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Pittsburgh is an unstoppable killing machine at that time.
Miami as well.
Oakland. Bill and Vin, you guys are talking about like triplets, wide receiver, quarterback, and
great running game, great offensive line, great defensive line, linebackers, for everything stacked with the Steelers, the Cowboys, the Dolphins, the Raiders, the Vikings, the Rams. Like those 7 teams that dominated each of the 6 divisions in the NFL they were defined by those 6 teams during the 1970s period. And along the way, you had this team in Cincinnati piloted by Kenny Anderson that was so accurate beyond his years. When I think of him as a comparison for today, I think of a lot of Matt Ryan. And a lot of other people have said that too, and not just because I'm a huge fan of his, but because I think of that very like underrated sort of quarterback in that lower level market from a football perspective, who was able to elevate a team that didn't have much going for them and brought them to that next level. And if you look at even on Pro Football Reference, the closest comparison to Ken Anderson is actually Matt Ryan. And that's comparing throughout every single, era and whatnot. They're comparing him to him. So I'd say, Ken Anderson is someone who's been a finalist the last couple of years. There's a lot of quarterbacks I want, like Cecil Isbell, Roman Gabriel, Charlie Connerly. But in my opinion, Ken Anderson, based on statistics and momentum, he's the top quarterback for me in the seniors that's not currently in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. And one last thing I'll say about
Trumpy.
What?
One, yeah, right, yes.
I like
Pat McAnally. Yeah, Pat McAnally. Those were fun players.
Yeah.
But the other thing I'll say is that during that dynastic run of the 49ers, they only had one close Super Bowl. They had others that were definitive, like decisive victories or utter blowouts.
Yeah.
The only one that wasn't was the 2016 game where Ken Anderson, once again, against a team that had a marked advantage in talent.
Yep.
But you're talking about two quarterbacks in very similar systems in Montana and Anderson. And in fact, when Bill Walsh talked about him, he said that those guys, he thought in terms of talent, they were roughly equal talents. He always believed that Ken Anderson was a great quarterback. And whenever he was asked about him, he told people that if he could have taken Ken Anderson with him when he showed up in San Francisco, he believed they could have had roughly the same success with Ken Anderson.
Yeah,
I think
And
so.
that's from Bill Walsh. And that's from Bill Walsh himself.
Yeah, like when I look at Ken Anderson, he even though Anthony Munoz is the best Bengal as a pure award standpoint, and Ken Riley, I would say, is the best Bengal in terms of representing that franchise more than anyone else. When I think of leadership for the Cincinnati Bengals, there's no person I think defines that more as a player than Ken Anderson. And yeah, obviously you had the Boomer Esiason and
I was going to ask. Yeah, you mentioned Boomer. Where do you put why the non-love for Boomer?
Actually, I should mention Boomer because he grew up in East Islip. I'm from West Islip. The reason why I'm not as big on Boomer, despite having the ties and whatnot, is because I think it's mostly because like Anderson was a better quarterback than Boomer. He had more longer sustained success than Boomer. He has way more black ink markers. I'm okay with Boomer, but I think purely as a quarterback and statistics and everywhere where they rank, I would still say Kenny still goes before Boomer any day of the week. And that's no shot to Boomer. Boomer is around here. Boomer is an icon. He's an absolute icon in this area. But I have to also be kind of objective here and say you got to go with Kenny. Kenny has the momentum. Kenny has the push. Kenny has the demand. I'm going to say Ken Anderson all the way. But that's our main focus when it comes to Bengals and the seniors pool to get in the Hall of Fame. Now that Ken Riley's in, go for the other Ken. Go for Ken Anderson. That's what I say. Yeah,
and I got to watch Norman Julius Esiason Jr.'s career from the time that Ralph Friedgen, right, and George O'Leary recruited him that's where all those quarterbacks from. Stan Gelbaugh, Frank Reich. All those quarterbacks that ended up going to Maryland in that period all came from, pick an exit, right? They all came from somewhere on Long Island. And he was incredible to watch in college. When he got to the NFL, he goes to Cincinnati, I'm not telling you any secrets. Essentially, then as now, ran on kind of a shoestring budget. And because of that, they sometimes, once free agency came around, they started losing talent. Now, luckily, Ken Anderson's career sort of, does end before free agency really comes into being. But Esiason's career overlaps with the beginning of true free agency in the NFL. And so that was something that kept them from being able to sustain success as a franchise, because once players could move to franchises where they had a chance to make more money, many of them did. But he, as just Vinny pointed out, the variance between his best and worst years is much more dramatic in his career between the two of them. Ken Anderson had a couple of bad seasons or down seasons, but they weren't as far down, and there were fewer of them. While most of his career seasons were closer to his best, right? He was from, the bandwidth or whatever between his best and worst is more like this, and there's more like this with Esiason. There was more of an up and down to his career.
Yeah. And, for Esiason, I think of Esiason a bit similar to how I think of Sims, although I do have Sims higher. I think if the Hall were to combine their broadcasting careers with their playing careers, sort of like how they sort of did with Dierdorf, and they sort of did with, they sort of did with like Dawson in a way. I think if you were to do that for, Esiason and especially Sims, their chances would definitely increase. I've been pushing for that a little bit behind the scenes, but right now, at the very moment, I still got to go with Anderson over Esiason. And again, this is coming from someone who's from the area that Boomer grew up. So don't worry, Boomer. I love you to pieces. Don't worry. I'm going to work behind the scenes to get that statue at East Islip High School. I promise you, I will.
Where do you think, given that you've got Ken Anderson, you didn't mention Corey Dillon, by the way.
I did mention Corey
He
Dillon.
did. He mentioned Corey Dillon.
Corey Dillon, in my opinion,
I apologize. I must be getting old.
No, it's okay. He reminds me a lot, and I said it in the Not in the Hall of Fame chat. He reminds me a lot of Steven Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
These two extremely underrated running backs. These teams around them were just god awful, losing season after losing season, draft bust after draft bust, fired coach after fired coach, miserable fan base after miserable fan base. But there was one consistent that the fans could always rely on. That wonderful running back that just carried the entire team on his shoulders to the end zone week in and week out.
Yep.
And Corey Dillon did that and defined that for his entire time with the Cincinnati Bengals. And when he went to the Patriots, he arguably had his best season, and he had some amazing seasons with Cincy. But now in a team with a legendary coach, legendary quarterback, amazing defense, great ownership, great morale support. He has his best season in his career, and the Patriots go on to win the Super Bowl.
Right.
Yeah.
That's my case for Corey Dillon. Chad Johnson.
Guys, I think you'll love this. I happen to see it. And so therefore, because I happen to see it, I'm going to post it. I think you'll know this guy, right? You know what this is called, Vinny? This is on Bengals.com, and it is called Ken Anderson's timeline for 2024 Hall of Fame bid.
It's Jeff Hobson. He's one of the voters for the Hall, actually.
Yes, he is.
Aha. And it reads here with Ken Riley's Pro Football Hall of Fame induction set. It's been done now, of course.
Right.
Bengals all-time passing leader Ken Anderson hopes to find out he has become a finalist 2 weeks later when the senior committee meets. Now, is that this week?
It happens in later in August. Now, personally, I don't think Kenny's going to make it this year. I personally believe that the senior nominees are going to be Randy Gradishar, Sterling Sharp, and I hope it's Al Wistert as one of the three. Al Wistert, I badly want. Badly want Al Wistert.
Yeah. In the same way that go ahead, Vinny.
Yeah, who is Al Wistert? Who is that?
Al Wistert, when he was part of those Philadelphia Eagles teams of the 1940s, he was viewed as arguably one of the best players in the NFL and was a part of six, not one, not two, six all-decade first teams of the 1940s.
Whoa.
6 of them. His numbers retired by the Eagles.
So he predates Chuck Bednarik.
He does.
Yeah. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. He does pretty Chuck Bednarik, and he was amazing. He was a monster on the field. like I love all these guys. I think every single one of these 12 are Hall of Fame worthy, but no one else could say that on this list. Al Worcester needs to make the Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
and I love these other guys too, like Maxie Baughan. I would love 9-time Pro Bowler, Eddie Metter. Oh, that's another great name. I know Steve McMichael's failing in health. He's also a really quality pick. Also, Art Powell, another great name too. I want him. I'm so happy. Otis Taylor, that's another one. Joe Jacoby, that's another really good name. But for me, if I had to choose only one person, even though there's three, Al Worcester and Randy Gradishar, I think, are for sure. I think Randy Gradishar is a certain. Al Worcester, I really won. And the last one is a little bit of a shaky one. I mean, Sterling Sharp had momentum last year. He can make it this year. Stephen Michael has the health. So who knows?
This gentleman at Bingers.com, let me just say this real quick. It might help out. This gentleman at Bingers.com mentions Anderson and 8 of his fellow senior finalists who didn't make the 2023 final cut are back in the semis. Sterling Sharp, Meadow, Walls, Everson Walls.
No, yep. Walls is not listed this year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, neither was Kuchenberg. Him, Kuchenberg, and Bell missed out.
Okay,
I have the whole list right here.
He says linebackers Maxie Baughan, Randy Gradishar, and Tommy Nobis, tailback Cesar Isabel, and guard tackle Bob Kuchenberg.
Kuchenberg. The names that were on the list last year that didn't make it this year at the part of the final 12 for whatever reason were, and I have the list right here.
Name it. I'll write it down.
Okay, Bob Kuchenberg, who was actually part of the final 3 before they cut, which I have no idea how he dropped that low. Cecil Isbell, someone I also really want. The other group is not as big. I love Cecil Isbell. Tommy Nobis, Mr. Falcon. So Falcons fan base is the opposite of the Bengals fan base. I'm not trying to knock on the Falcons fans, but I actually tried to push for Tommy Nobis. The fan base didn't really want to go for it because I thought they were going to lose. So, okay, whatever. I still want you, though. And then Everson Walls, awesome. One of my dad's favorites. So
mine too. Dallas Cowboys, number 24.
Oh, he was great. Don't forget Browns and Giants as well. Don't forget.
Yeah, so the same passion that Vinny feels for Al Worcester, I feel for Billy Houghton. And Billy Houghton's still alive. Now, they need to hurry. He's deep into it. He's well into his 90s now. But this is a man who was the Double Crown champion career-wise when he retired. He led, in the history of the NFL, reception yards at the time he retired.
Hey, spell his name real quick.
Billy Houghton.
Howton.
Thank you.
How are you doing? And then ton, like this weighs a ton.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And had the misfortune of when Vince Lombardi came into the Packers, he had been by far the best player on the Packers offense from the time from his rookie season. He still holds rookie records. To this day, he has 2 rookie records. Think about how different for the Packers franchise. Think about how different the game is now. When he enters the league, you could essentially saddle a receiver like a polo pony and ride him all over the field. And I'm not really joking. You could basically there was no illegal contact penalty in those days. So bump and run was a real thing in those days. You could bump and run a receiver until he gets into the locker room and gets in his car and drives home.
Al Davis.
So it was much more difficult to play wide receiver. And still, he holds 2 rookie records. Still, both yards, and he still holds the record for 200-yard receiving games as a rookie. Those are records that he's held since 1952. So it gives you an idea of the greatness of Billy Houghton. Yeah, he played, and you were talking about playing on below average or whatever poor teams. Poor Billy Houghton. Every time he went to a team and it started to get good, he'd get traded. So, as I said, one of the first things that Vince Lombardi did when he got there is he traded him because he was one of the few good players they had, and he needed to bring back more players. So he traded him to the Browns, who were not bad, but were sort of in transition from the Otto Graham version of the team to what later became the Paul Brown version of the team, and it was sort of an awkward period between the two. And then he gets traded again. As the Browns start to become dominant again, they flip him. But he managed to have one great season on his way out the door with the Browns, and then he goes to an expansion version of the Cowboys. Now imagine what that's like. So
bad that year. They were like awful. Like what?
Exactly.
Didn't
So,
I don't
and by
think
the
they
time
even
it started to get good, he was retiring. So he just never got a chance to really play for a good team. And the quarterbacks he played for, they weren't all terrible exactly, but I'd say the high water mark was either Kyle Rote Sr. or Milt Plum. And those are, solid, not embarrassed. Babe Pirelli, he also played with his former teammate, Babe Pirelli.
So could
I mean, not, sorry, with his former teammates. He was a college teammate of Rote. Pirelli was from Kentucky. But those are the top quarterbacks he played with, and none of them were guys that are ever going to sniff the Hall of Fame. They were just solid NFL quarterbacks at best. Some of the quarterbacks he played with were not even that. So he did all that with, I would say, very little to work with.
Yeah, and also like Howden is someone I want, but you're gonna love this. When I'm gonna get to this in a little bit for it, but also we talk about seniors. What I love is, and you know this especially, Bill, what I love is the contributors. That's what I care about. The contributors, non-players. And I understand that, it's not as appealing for many other people. But for me, it always pains me that there's only one non-player that's inducted per year. And, because I think the pool is just much deeper than people give it credit for. And looking at the list right now, the ones that we have that are part of the final 12 are John Wooten, Robert Kraft, and Mike Holmgren, which were part of the Black Cup from 4-1 before it was Coryell. And then you have Clark Shaughnessy, Buckle Kilroy, Buddy Parker, Dan Reeves, Art Rooney Jr., Mike Shanahan, Lloyd Wells, Marty Schottenheimer, and Tom Coughlin. Yeah, these I'm happy with this, though there's a part of me that kind of pains me because, Rune Artledge was someone I really, really wanted from there, and he was left off for whatever reason. But at the same time, I'm very happy that Lloyd Wells is here.
Yes.
I really am happy for him because I'm happy with the coaches, but I feel like we need to have some more, like I said, just more non-players. Like, I just feel like all the non-coach non-players just getting kind of casted aside.
Right.
So, like, seeing someone like Lloyd Wells here, I'm really happy for.
Yeah. The fact that
question, what about Ed Too Tall Jones?
Well, I mean, he may not even be the most deserving lineman from the Cowboys. Harvey Martin is probably even more deserving, and Jethro Pugh is probably in there too. Amongst
what position did Leroy Jordan play? Was he a defensive end or
linebacker?
Linebacker.
Yeah, he was a linebacker.
He was middle linebacker. Leroy Jordan was
Yep.
the first middle linebacker in the flex defense.
Yes,
Yep.
that's correct.
That is correct. And he was Lee, L-E-E-R-O-Y, right? Not Leroy, L-E, but L-E-E.
And it wasn't Leroy. It was
Leroy.
Leroy, exactly. Yeah.
Leroy Jordan. Yeah.
Leroy. So that's my discussion on, like, the people that and in case you're curious, you're probably saying, Vinny, did you speak to people across?
Yes.
Oh, I spoke to some people, all right. When I was there, you can pull this up. So I'll just skim through like the other photos right here. I'll get to this after I show it. Here's Rondé, and he was getting his jacket. So I'll just I'll get to it in a bit. I mean, do you guys want to see those photos, or could I just skim
if you got pictures with Rondé Barber, yes.
Well, Rondé Barber. Here's Mike Tomlin giving him the gold jacket.
Yes.
Soon Tom will get one of those. I don't care what some Steelers fans say. Joe Klecko, my everyone in Long Island,
yes,
this guy so badly, it wasn't even funny. And here he is standing in like the table, getting ready, walking down, and Howie Long gives him the gold jacket.
Yep.
And that was just awesome for me to see. I said, finally, now the talk radio people could shut up for once. And here's Zach Thomas. Like, this is another one. So Dolphins fans just wanted this guy so badly. And here he is, Jimmy Johnson, giving him his long overdue gold jacket. And over here, Revis Island, Darrelle Revis. He comes up, and Ty Law, who's from the same town as him, which also has Melvin Renfro. Four Hall of Famers in a town that has only 1,000 people in it.
Yeah, Tony Dorsett. I mean, it's a pretty.
Mike Ditka, Tyler, and Darrell
Tyler.
Reeves. Those are
Yeah.
pretty legendary names.
Yeah, if you can get 4 Hall of Famers out of a town the size of Aliquippa, PA, that tells you something.
Yeah, and here's DeMarcus Ware. He's comes up, and you have Michael Strahan giving him the gold jacket and going that little T-pose phase. And then finally, the one everyone wanted. This place went absolutely like erupted when Joe Thomas came, and this is just seeing how everyone just stood up for him. And here's Jerome Bettis gave him the jacket, and everyone was just so happy. And when I came out, I saw some more Hall of Famers. There's Cliff Harris. There's Kevin Mawae in the distance over there. I also got, when I was up here too, when I was up here, I also found Howie Long and shook his hand. I shook hands with Rich Eisen. Here's Joe Klecko. I wasn't able to get a photo with him, but I did see him. And then here's Jim Porter. Just see Jim Porter. I was walking with my friend Ron. He's the guy that's been pushing like crazy for Randy Gradishar. Mm-hmm. And he knows Jim, and he introduces me to him. And you could just see how excited I was. I just oozed with excitement saying it. And I made sure to pitch what I'm into, who I want to see. I mentioned Pudge Heffelfinger. I mentioned John Browlier. I mentioned Charles Follis. I mentioned how much I want to see more non-players. And he was just blown away for someone of my age to talk about these. And he said, well, you can also list, the numbers he won, but he also knows how passionate.
You're representing 62 Media too, man.
I did mention I do vlog for Zenny 62 Media. I did mention that. I worked
keep
with
that stock going up, man.
Yeah, I mentioned the name.
Zero to hero.
I mentioned Zenny 62, and I've been vlogging for it, and that I told him how much I want to see. Don't worry. Like I said,
Thank you.
Well, don't worry, Bill. I did mention Pudge. I had to mention Pudge to him. How much I want. And here, Ron took a photo of me with him. That's the photo of the night in my book.
Photograph. Can you enlarge that, Vinny? There's a plus sign over there, I think.
Sure. It might be a little blurry, but
no, actually, it's still clear. Yeah.
Okay. Here it is.
Cool. Well done. Well done.
Me taking a photo with the guy that runs the Hall of Fame. Like
a little larger.
Well, this is the largest I can make it.
Okay. Good enough.
But still, just the fact that I got to speak with him, and I told him what I want. I was calm, cool, and collected. I felt, obviously, it's not going to be overnight, but it made me feel confident that one day Pudge will get his bronze bust. Pudge will get his bronze bust. He laid the foundation for everything.
Right.
This man was so significant. I don't mean just an award. I don't just want a plaque. I want a full-blown bronze bust treatment for the guy that was ground zero for professional football. And I spoke to the guy next to me. He agreed with me.
Photograph back there. Can you go back for a second?
This one?
Yeah, the one you were just at. Yeah, who are the other people around you?
I don't know. They were just friends. I wasn't really paying attention to who was there. Mostly because when I saw Porter, my eyes were straight at him. And it's no shot to anyone else. Like when you see the guy that's representing the thing that defines your brain activity more than anything else, you kind of focus on that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that would have been a very different picture a couple of years ago when it's still David Baker.
No, I'd be tiny by comparison. And I mean, but now it looks like
Mr. Baker is a huge man.
Oh, mammoth. I mean, he had a son who was a,
lineman for the Falcons.
All-American at USC and was, drafted by the Falcons. And he dwarfed his son, who was an offensive tackle. So
have you met him, Bill?
David, but yes, but not at the Hall of Fame, but at another venue, yes.
Oh, yeah, I met him we were at the NFL owners meeting and spring league meeting. This is in Orlando, and he came through, and the guy looks like he's. There are only two people in my entire life who look like the human personification of bears. One of them is I'm serious. One of them is Keith Gilbertson, who was the head coach at Cal in '91.
Oh, geez. Well, you might as well have been the mascot then, because they're the Bears.
And the other was Dave Baker.
Yeah.
I can't get over.
David Baker, you know what he kind of reminds me of? He reminds me of my middle school principal, Dr. Daniel Markwood. Amazing man. He would used to call me Vinny Boombots, actually. This guy was like, he lit up a room, and you had his respect immediately because he cared about the students, and he knew that there was something wrong. He would act on it, and he did an amazing job. So, Dr. Markwood, if you're listening to this, I thank you so much for everything you've done for me, and I wish nothing but the best for you.
Nice.
I'm at the motel we stayed at was actually in Worcester, because the hotels in the area were so expensive, so we had to go like 30 minutes out to Worcester for our stuff, and it was a little stuffy. In case anyone's curious why I'm showing this photo, is because this shirt has Jungles of the Hall on it. This was the shirt the Bengals fans wore back in 2021 to outside the Hall of Fame to picket it and push for more of their inductees into the Hall. And to show appreciation for that, I decided to wear the shirt that Tom Justin sent me in the mail from that same event to show my appreciation for him and to show, look at how far we come.
Mm-hmm.
Look at how far we come. And I have the two right there, Ken Riley and Ken Anderson.
Yeah.
You get the Kens in, the rest will follow. That's what the mantra was. And we lived by that. And, here we are. Riley's in the Hall. Anderson's next. Which one? Willie? Ken? Yes. And then the next day, I was so excited. We go outside. Paul had a Subaru with us. We look outside. There's a whole area. There's even some inflatable helmets for the USFL. Also, another thing too, by the Hall of Fame, the telephone poles are actually in the shape of goalposts. Actually, couldn't get a good photo of it, but I thought that was pretty cool, so I had to take a photo of it. This is a bus we were on. It was full of Dolphins fans, and a lot of them weren't even from Florida. They were just all across the nation. Different breeds, different everything. All explain how they became Dolphins fans, and it was really, really cool. Here's a better look at the inductees. There's a little sign there that says "Out of bounds." Please no alcoholic beverage beyond this point. Here's listing all the names. And this looks, you can never be cut from, traded from, or even quit this team. Hall of Famers forever.
Nice.
Which I think is really cool. And then I go in, I get my ticket. Here explains why the Hall's in Canton. And for those that don't know, Canton may be the birthplace of the NFL, but it's not where professional football itself was started. Professional football itself was started in Allegheny, Pennsylvania, modern day Pittsburgh.
Yep.
But the reason why it's there is because of pressure by the city members in Canton, Ohio, and that's why I'm here today. And this little area shows some memorabilia from the inductees. Here's Rondé Barber. His jersey, his cleats, the books that he did with his brother Tiki, who should also be in the Hall of Fame. He was my favorite player as a child.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah. Tiki Barber was my favorite player as a child. Before Matt Ryan came into the thought, it was Tiki Barber. And the final game of his career where David Aker hit that field goal that was the last game of his career, I went in my room screaming, crying, and my dad came there to comfort me.
Wow.
I'll never forget that. And don't worry, the Giants won the Super Bowl the next year, but I hate the fact that he became a pariah for a lot of the New York media because they saw him as he quit on the team. Listen, the dude finished third all time in terms of, rushing average per season.
Yep.
All time, third all time, 4.7. Everyone that's below him is either in the Hall of Fame, and I think only two others, like Jim Brown, and I think like Barry Sanders, maybe.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, Tiki was unbelievable as a player.
Benny?
Yeah.
I got something that you might find of interest, and I think Mr. Chakas, Mr. Carroll was in the room when this happened too. So I'm just going to post this real quick. Hold on a second, and we'll keep those hot. Keep those pictures hot, as they say. You'll get a kick out of this, I'm pretty certain. Here we go, and voila, and voila. This is 13 years ago, Vinny.
Oh boy.
That was our sponsor. That was our sponsor.
Nice.
Chakas Football Reporters on here with giant, great Tiki Barber in Meadowlands. Tell us a little bit, though. First of all, what are you doing here today? You working with Yahoo Sports?
Yeah, I'm working with Yahoo Sports. Covering
Jason's a great guy.
Jason's
Jason for years.
Unbelievable guy. Alan is great.
So good.
Just covering what's going on here, feeling the vibe of some of the teams and the decisions that they've made, and putting them up on the site. This is always an interesting, hype-filled exercise with the draft. We don't really know what's going to happen with these kids, but the NFL is a machine, and they do an unbelievable job of building these kids up and building the expectations up, which drives fans and everybody else to want to pay attention.
Now, you knew Mr. Reese when he was a personnel director before he became general manager, and you were a second-round draft pick back in your day, which is still a very highly touted player. And
Almost first. Coach Fossil told me that
they took a chance. They
no,
took a risk.
Now, Vinny, Bill was just to the extreme left of us, right, Bill?
Yep.
That's at Radio City Music Hall.
Yep.
Those are the days, right, Bill?
Those were the days.
Yep.
If they're able to,
Or that year with Steve Martin, Andrew Lalama from Consistent Draft Services.
if we're able to, Zenny, if we're able to get credentialed, I would love to go to it would be Detroit, right? If Detroit would be the draft.
Detroit.
Nice.
You got to get on there like with Bill, and we'll get you going and just see what happens.
Yeah,
Because,
nice.
I'm ready to see you after 19 years anyway. So, but anyway, here's.
No, they took the chance that I would still be there. They knew that they wanted to take me in the first. They thought I'd still be there, so they took Ike in the first and got me in the second. So it worked out well.
And you lasted a little longer, obviously a little longer with the Giants than Ike did, although Ike had a great career as well. Talk a little bit about this running back class. There's so many guys that are still on the board, even though so many of the guys walked off, came off the board late. So many guys still on the board, quality players at the running back position. Give us an assessment.
We just heard that Dwyer, the kid from Georgia Tech, went to Pittsburgh Steelers. They had a need there, but there was about 4 or 5 guys that I think are going to make immediate impacts. I think Ryan Matthews was an unbelievable pick for.
That's
Matthews from Nevada. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. We had it during a show, and that was Bill down there. So that was with Tiki, and I think that's not the only one though. We were
2010. Look right there.
Yeah, we were blessed
advice.
Once again to have everyone giving his advice to NFL draft rookies. See?
No, he was so good, man. He was. As a little kid watching him play, man, just the way he would break through his line was second to none.
Nothing you expect and all the hype is pointless once training camp starts. It's a different game with men.
And what do you think about this red carpet and all this hoopla and now it's celebrity?
The NFL is a machine. It has been for a long time, and it's growing year.
NFL's a machine.
See what happens.
It's like
they try to grow it.
It's like,
It is, but
yeah. So there you go, Bill. And Bill and Vinny, and just a little taste, and now we'll bring back to your stop screen there, and they will add your stream. There we are, and we're back to normal. Ta-da!
Yeah.
So
Yay!
a little lesson there. So when you're out there vlogging, always be ready, because you never know who you're going to encounter. You never know if it's going to be your first time or last. and vlogging matters. So for actually for both of you, but yeah. So there, but that's history to add to your present fantastic work, Vinny.
Definitely. And then here's Don Coryell's jacket. Over here is, you can look right here. It's
Nice. Look at that.
Look at the ball that from his first ever win. Granted, it was a preseason win, but a win's a win regardless.
Yeah.
This trophy I like. It has all the old logos on it, and here's a playbook and a binder. This was really good. This was really cool. Here's Chuck Howley's Pro Bowl jersey. You can see all the wears and tears.
I remember that.
And you can even see, if you look very closely, here's the old bobblehead design right there. And right here is a Super Bowl MVP award.
Super Bowl 5, excuse me.
Super Bowl 5. Only player on a losing team.
Right. And first defensive player ever.
He was in Super Bowl 6 where they won. He could have won that MVP too, honestly. He was that good.
Yep.
Here's Joe Klecko. Here's his jersey. Here's his rosary.
I'm sorry that man never got a ring.
Yeah.
That's a shame.
Which one? Joe Klecko?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he has one now, a Hall of Fame ring.
Yeah.
Here's Darrelle Revis. This right here. That is his I think that's his college helmet, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't think it's college helmet.
Yeah,
because no, that had to be high school.
Yeah, high school. Yeah, it wouldn't be college. It's high school.
Yeah,
here's some notes that he did. Look at just how the turf and the grass dyed those cleats of his, and the draft card too. I love the preservation that they had for this. This is the one I was most anticipating. Ken Riley. Here's his helmet, his jersey, his shoulder pads, and you can't really see there. There's a signature that he had from someone. Here's Joe Thomas. Again, helmet, jersey, gloves.
73.
Yeah, another 73. 2 73s this year.
Yeah.
Klecko and Thomas.
Yeah, that's right.
And speaking of, then there's also 2 Thomases too. We saw Joe Thomas. Here's Zach Thomas.
Yep.
Love these old Dolphins uniforms. I wouldn't mind if that was their permanent setup. Here's the Texas Tech helmet. Obviously, he won't be the last. See Patrick Mahomes. Here's his cleats and everything. Here's DeMarcus Ware. Here's his Troy.
He's there.
Yep. Yeah, he's right there. He's looking through the glass. Everyone has like a.
He's there.
Yes, he's there to sack you.
Yeah. Where is he? He's there. Yeah.
Here's his high school days.
Yeah, that's right.
He got this there, and also here's his. And also right here, this was a torch that Ken Riley held during the 1996 Olympics in Atlanta. He carried that.
Huh.
Right here. There's some more little knickknacks. There's Rondé stuff.
Rondé
is going to he's going to make quarterbacks have a rough day, that's for sure, and he did on many instances.
Well played, Kenny. Well played.
And this was incredible. Every single interception that Ken Riley ever made throughout his entire Hall of Fame career is on that plaque. Every single one.
Wow.
And the first one actually ended up being the longest return yardage. It was from Liskey, 66 yards at home against the Denver Broncos, and that was his rookie year. In his final year in the league, he had 2 pick sixes.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's how it. Those are all of them.
Go beyond with the new GAF Timberline.
Got it. Okay. Sorry about that. Minor disruption. Go ahead.
Okay. Right here was an old jersey that Jim Thorpe wore for the Canton Bulldog in the 1910s. Those are old jewelries for him. This is the car that they founded the NFL in. This is the actual car they founded the NFL in.
Yep.
And you can even just see that the wooden wheels and everything, it's so surreal too. And the paint job is fantastic. Up here, you can see cards of Old Canton Bulldogs players and even the plan for what they're going to do for the Hall of Fame. And here's a prototype helmet from from Jim Thorpe. Sorry, I'm keep coughing a lot.
Okay.
Here's the more Hamlin stuff. Here's one of the plays from the year. It got a little stuffy in Ohio because the pillows at the motel were kind of stuffy. And we decided to just go up to the bust area, just to get that out of the way first because that was the real deal for me. But here it is. Now, before I explain the bus, I need to first explain to you what it was like before I stepped foot in that room. I literally had to emotionally prepare myself for it because this meant, listen, Bill knows his guys and everything, and the people that vote on this stuff voted. My friend Brian has told me, he said he thinks about the Hall of Fame a lot, and he told me, I don't think anyone else that I've ever spoken to thinks about the Hall of Fame more than you do, Vin. And honestly, I believe that because I literally had to prepare myself just before I entered because I knew it was such a big deal for me. This literally meant everything. And I get prepared. I even do a little hop just to like compose myself and emotionally prepare myself for the stakes. And then as soon as I see those busts, I'm in such awe of finally seeing it that I almost stumble a little bit while walking because I was almost in disbelief. It's finally here in front of me.
But you made it.
It finally here. I don't have to think about going there. I'm here. I'm in Canton, Ohio. And I'm looking at the busts of every single person that's been inducted into the Hall of Fame up to that point. And I get everyone's picture from every single class. I take their photo. Everyone you could think of. Is there one that you'd like me to show you? Here's Jim Brown. Here's Vince Lombardi, by the way.
Yeah.
You
have Tom Landry?
Of course I have Tom Landry. I have Landry. What year was Landry inducted?
I believe, I want to say 1987. That's just off the top of my head, but I'm not sure.
He was inducted in 1990. I'll go to 1990.
I was close.
You were close. You were close. I'll give you points for being close. Don't worry.
And we had a quick mention of the pride of Plainfield, New Jersey, Peter Adrian Liskey, right? Penn State grad and quarterback of a couple of teams in the CFL as well as the NFL.
Wow, Vinny, you got everybody.
Here he is.
Coach.
Tom Landry in the flesh.
Inducted by Roger Staubach, who called him the man in the funny hat.
Yep.
Well, he was a man, and his hat was kind of funny looking.
I had one. I was such an admirer of Tom Landry, who, were it not for Landry's use of feedback and control theory and applying it to football, I would have had zero interest in football because Otis Sistrunk, famed Raider defensive tackle and nose tackle, who many say was from the University of Mars, but was just a heck of a nice guy, was on the August 8th day, if memory serves precisely, of 1974, was in our living room.
Wow.
At Oakland. And my mom
9 years ago.
Yeah, and 75, I'm sorry. My mom called me down, and I didn't know who Otis Sistrunk was. My first question was, do you like photography? He didn't know how to use a camera. And my second question was, do you like Star Trek? Watch Star Trek. And so I didn't know what to say. It was nice to him, but then I said, hey, nice to meet you, Mr. Sistrunk. And I went back upstairs, and he was Mom's friend. So I figured, if he's going to be at our house, I should get to know something about him. And I happened to find a book called The NFL's Encyclopedic History of Pro Football at a store called Crocs and Britannia's.
Yes, Crocs and Britannia.
Remember that? Which was at the now still there, but a lot more decrepit. It wasn't decrepit in those days. Place called Eastmont Mall, and my mom bought me that book, thick coffee table book. Only thing I was interested in really was, I didn't know until I got to the back of it, because this is why I asked for it. It was a diagram history of pro football, and it has a special section featuring Tom Landry and a photograph. And this is where I really learned how to draw football plays. It was a photograph of the pre-shift that the Dallas offense used to go from some kind of disparate, what we now would call 3-by-2 formation, right? To back into a Brown formation. And I was mesmerized. And then it had another diagram with the flex defense. And they described the linemen on defense were triangles, the linebackers were squares, and the defensive backs were circles. So if you see me to this day drawing, that's where I got that from. I got it from that, and I never strayed from it. And so Tom Landry, because he encouraged an organization man perspective, a systems approach to football, that was why I became interested in football.
Wow.
Right? Yeah. There you go.
That's incredible.
Oh, and then on top of that, I started taking the Dallas Cowboys weekly, because at that time also, there was a TV show called Dallas, which Bill, you may remember, was super popular.
Yeah, that's putting it mildly.
And I was in love with the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders. Who wasn't?
Who wasn't? Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So at the middle of each Dallas Cowboys subscription that my mom bought for me, I didn't tell her why I really had it, but it was the cheerleader centerfold, right? But I was also a huge fan of the defense, and I would, as much as I could, try to find out everything I could. It was just pre-internet days, all right? You were listening to radio, and that was really what you had. It was the radio, and what television was there. But if you're in the Bay Area, you got the Raiders more than anything. And so in those days, the Cowboys were always pitched as the computer Cowboys and so on. Well, anyway, I had this question about how the Dallas defense works, and what Bob Brunig, who is the successor to Leroy Jordan and middle linebacker, Arizona State, you might remember Bill, was taught to look for in the flex defense. And so I wrote a letter to the Cowboys. They were at 6116 North Central Expressway. And to my complete surprise, they wrote back and invited me to come to the office for a visit. And I went, Mom! And so Mom got me on a trip to American Airlines by myself on a flight.
Giving everyone a cough today.
And I had a room at the Reunion Tower. I had my first cocktail. I had rum and Coke. And I didn't have Bill's reaction. And that was how I became a Dallas Cowboys fan. They put me into this room, and they gave me 6 reels of film as Ernie Stautner came out. Wow. And basically, asked me what I recognized, and I said, hey, I found this reel where Sam Cunningham was the fullback for the Patriots versus the Cowboys at Texas Stadium.
Grano's big brother.
Yeah. And if you remember Charlie Hanna at guard, don't die on us, Bill. If you mean
John Hanna?
John Hanna at guard.
Yeah, box.
Yeah.
He's right here, John Hanna.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Get him. Get him. Go over there. Go over there.
Yeah, I have John Hanna right here.
Awesome. That man
Yep.
hit Randy White so fast and so hard that Randy was not able to get into his center guard gap in,
Right.
flex strong. He was quite literally frozen, whereas everybody else was moving. Bob Brunig was headed in that direction. Then Bob Brunig realized, oh, I'm headed in the wrong direction. He tried to turn around and get back. He got clipped, but there was not a clipping call. Okay. And so the hole opened up. It was so big that the three of us could have walked through it.
Wow.
And I pointed that out to Coach Stautner. I said, hey, this is something I thought maybe it was better rather than having Randy over the guard, actually lining him up pre-snap in the gap, right? That way he's not taken out. And so Coach Stautner said, yeah, that's pretty good, So, but what struck me about that entire visit, Vinny, and Bill, was in those days, Bill, you heard about how complicated the Cowboys defense was, right, Bill? How complicated the offense was. BS, the defensive playbook was simple. I mean, I remember everything about that playbook. It was simple. I was shocked. It was 13 pages.
Wow, that's tiny.
Yeah, that was it. Okay. Now
front and back or just the sheets themselves.
Yeah, but they had, to be fair, I don't want to oversimplify it. They had these little drawings, and Coach Landry had these little feet where he wanted you to line up. Everything was very meticulous. In the flex, when you went into a gap, you didn't go into the gap. What you did was you put your head on the shoulder of the offensive lineman in the direction that you were supposed to go at flex. So in other words, if you were flex strong and the tight end was over here, okay, then at the snap of the ball, you were going to make sure your head was over here, okay, so that you could be in a position because the tight end is in this direction, all right? So you're going this direction, all right, when you line up to the head because the head is here. So you want to make sure that the head is here, but the tight end is over there. Okay, so I know it doesn't make any sense for some reason. I'm actually moving the direction of the tight end, which is supposed to be over here. That's why, because I'm pointing the wrong way. The tight end. That's funny as heck. Anyway, what I'm making is that the tight end is over here. Okay, so your head is supposed to be. Let's say this is John Hanna. Your head is supposed to be here. So the effect is. Because I went to the Cowboys game in '79 against the Steelers, and I had an end zone shot that I just kept for years because it was a picket fence. Between every Steeler was a Cowboy, and it was an obvious fence. And that's when you knew the flex was working. When there was no picket fence, where it was that hole, that's where you knew it wasn't working. You go in and figure out what happened. It was the best teaching method I've ever. It's the best teaching episode of any subject I've ever had in my entire life. The way he taught it. Yeah.
Speaking of great teachers and legends, I want to talk about Al Davis's bust in particular. Now, for those that are curious, the busts are made of bronze, but they're all hollow except for Al Davis's. For whatever reason, when they casted the bronze, it accidentally filled everything up, but everything was so done. They said, let's go for it. So his bust is actually twice as heavy as everyone else's, like 3 times as heavy. Makes sense. I think it kind of fits for Al Davis's in a way. And here's more busts.
If that's something do you think Amy would know why about that?
What?
Do you think Amy would know why about that?
Amy might know about it. Also, I should mention this too. Amy was a semifinalist last year. She was part of the initial choice. But when they made the cut to 12, this time she wasn't even listed at all for whatever reason. And I have no idea why. It's not like her impact diminished in a year.
Nope.
Like how Amy Trask deserves a bust in this room. She does. She absolutely does. I don't care what some people say. She deserves a bust. She deserves to be the first woman inducted Her
You know
is
what I
very
think happens, Vinny, is I think, and maybe Bill, you can weigh in on this if you don't die on us first. But anyway, but you think maybe, guys, it's that there's a window of opportunity, and then what happens is that you've got, I don't know, I'll tell you who brought this to my attention. A person who I wanted is Ray Chester, because Ray's claim is very sound. He says that he is the first of the pass catching tight ends and run blocking tight ends of an era. Because now they mainly catch passes, but he was dual threat, and he believes that he and people like him are not going to see the light of day because of the wave of excellent pass catching tight ends that's come in, because like Kellen Winslow, of the pass happy era that was arguably ushered in by Don Coryell, right?
yeah.
So, what are your thoughts about that?
I mean, I would say that, I'd say that Amy's window is still open. The Raiders fans are still pushing her a lot for it. I have no idea why Amy was left off. I think she might have just missed out because, listen, Raiders fans know a good push when they see it. So if any Raiders fans haven't, find your voter that's in your area and press like crazy on the contributor committee to push for Amy Trask to make the Hall of Fame. That's what you got to do.
Yep.
Yeah, the path for contributors, as Mr. Laspoduso mentioned earlier, is even more difficult because only one's selected, and it's even less transparent, if anything, how they get to, get to even be there. Like there's a little more transparency on the player side because you have a better sense of how people make it through the hopper and shuffle through and get sorted through and end up becoming quarterfinalists and semifinalists and finalists. But the contributors, like I said, I won't say it's a mystery. That'd be a bit of exaggeration, but it's not as open. It's not as well explained. And the one I'm most excited about is Judge Wells, AC Wells, and I don't know if he'll make it, but it's really something I'd be hoping to see him do. Now, in terms of like the first quote unquote dual, threat or whatever, dual purpose tight end, I mean that part obviously isn't true. When the tight end position eventually sort of evolved, you had guys like Pete Retzlaff, and then look at the rookie season that Mike Ditka had. He first comes out in the draft and pops off in a 12-game season for over 11 yards receiving. So, I mean, that John Mackey, Ted Arbanis, I mean, the Stu Voigt, like all of the tight ends in the, in the 50s and 60s and 70s were expected to block. There wasn't that, and of course, your beloved Cowboys sort of had a two tight end system to make up for the blocking deficiencies of one of them. So they had Billy Joe Dupree and Gene Fugit, one of whom was essentially just a pass receiver, and the other one who was a really good blocker. But every once in a while, they'd switch it up. They would throw the ball to the one that everyone thought was there to block, or run to a play to the side of the one that everybody thought was just a pass receiver.
But let's not forget, they also gave the end around to Billy Joe Dupree.
Well, that's because he was a really good athlete.
Well, but I'm saying that wasn't something you saw anywhere else at the time. You have to struggle to see the number of tight ends that were used.
I wouldn't say. I mean, Rich Castor got in the rounds. He was blazing fast. So I wouldn't say he was the only tight end in that era who did it.
I said you'd have to struggle to find him.
Yeah, that's what I meant. But obviously going back to the whole thing with the non-players, I'm gonna keep pressing until
I'll help you out.
I can't. Thank you when it comes to the non-players, because I find with a lot of the voters, they just don't seem that passionate about it because they feel like they're in the way of a player that they want. And I think that's wrong, because I think that just creates a sense of a false dichotomy that you got to have one or the other. I don't understand why you can't have both. I mean, look at this whole list of names right here. I mean, look at the names that were just added as well. Elmer Layden, Jerry Seaman, Jim Tunney, Seal Bricado, Eddie Codal, Bud Adams, Seymour Cywolf, Ralph Hay, Otho Davis, Lee Remmel, Alex Gibbs, George Sieper, Jerry Markreef. And you're telling me that those guys aren't deserving? All those guys were significant. And I'm listening. These are just people that are on this list. There's so many that are not there. Oliver David Thompson, Chris O'Brien, Howard Cosell. You know, you also look at the people like who else? Oh yeah, Bill McPhail is another one. You know, Pat Summerall is another one that comes to my mind.
Howard Cosell should definitely there because arguably Howard Cosell made Monday Night Football and Frank Gifford's already in.
Oh, I'm going to mention at the end. I'm going to mention something special about Cosell. And I think you're going to love it when I say this too. You look at other people like Jack Stedman is another one. I think of another person like you know, Dick Haley is another one. I think of, you know, some of these other like legendary names, and they because there's only one per year, I don't know if they'll ever make it, and it's a real shame because these are some great names here.
Yeah.
These are amazing names. These are like here. I mean, Lee Remmel in particular, he reminds me of myself. This dude had an unprecedented knowledge of everything Packers.
Vinny, there needs to be 1 year where the NFL puts in 3 times the normal amount of Hall of Famers for that reason.
Yeah, I'd be down for that too. And also with Lee Remmel, he was born exactly 75 years.
Maybe 2 years they need to do that, not just one. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I was saying
what about that, Bill?
Well, it'd be a hard sell. I'm not disagreeing with you, but even in the centennial year, they didn't raise the numbers that much. I would love to see them do something like that, but they'd have to have some catalyst, some reason to do it.
Yeah.
And I don't know what
we'll make it happen.
Here's the reason. We're talking about arguably the end of the first golden age and the emergence of the second one. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And my point is that the second golden age is producing arguably even more Hall of Fame candidates than the first.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So you need to get as many of the people from the first golden age out of the way, if you will.
Yeah.
To make up for it, because look, the simple fact of the matter is that there's more football, right? We went from 9 games to 14 games to 16 games. Now we're at 18 games.
We're at 17 games. We're soon going to get to 18 games. I believe we will one day, Zenny, and I've been pushing behind the scenes to get these names in. I promise, and trust my words on this, the non-players will get their day.
Kenny, though, here's my point is, there's always the right time to do something, and I think that we're getting to a point where we better do it now before we get over glutted and people just get forgotten for too long. You know, I think we're now.
I'll make sure those names are never forgotten. I'll make sure they make the hall. So the next ones I'll do, like there's a whole bunch of these other ones. Here's another one too. They kind of went back and forth with the even odd. So that's why I kind of look like there's none there.
Hey, let me ask you a question. Has there ever been an NFL History Month?
No, not that I know of.
No. I do a Black Football History Month on Twitter every year, but no, you're right. There's never been a declaration where they called. I guess they could pick the, celebration of the founding of the league and maybe fix it as that date.
Yeah, and it should be a time when there are additional inductees.
Yeah, I'd be down with that too. Also, 2015 is an important year for two.
Oh, and by the way, because when was the NFL founded? What day was that officially?
September 17th, 1920.
Which, of course, my birthday, September 17th.
Oh, cool. So
Great
basically,
birthday.
Hey, you know what? That's perfect because that is the first weekend. That's the first month of the NFL season, right?
Right.
Correct. September.
So what better way, since the focus is already on the NFL, to have for 3 years running an NFL month, a congressionally recognized federal month, the NFL month.
That'd be pretty cool. I could see
We used to have these ceremonies every weekend of inducting great players and great contributors with the objective of getting in 50.
Yeah, that would be
50.
That'd be nice. Also, Zenny, I do want to mention this next one. 2015, I want to mention in particular because this year was I know him for two reasons. First off, it's the first year that I got into the Hall of Fame, 2015, this class. It was also the first year they finally took the contributors out and put them in their own committee. So this was big because you had Bill Polian and Ron Wolf. In 2016, you had so I'm just gonna go here. 2016, you had Eddie DeBartolo. 2017, you had Paul Tagliabue, but he was voted down. But we had Jerry Jones, which I was very happy with still.
Yeah.
2018, Bobby Beathard, another really good addition. And then 2019, Pat Bolin and Joe.
Wrong that Paul was voted down, though.
Paul was voted down by like one vote, but in 2020 he made it along with Steve Sable and George Young, and also the coaches. They had coached in the second a separate thing for that time, so that you had Jimmy Johnson, not the quarterback from the Niners, of course the head coach, and Bill Cowher. There's also a guy named Dan Reeves there who was the owner of the Rams, and then 2021 you had Drew Pearson as your senior. You had Tom Flores as your coach, and you had Bill Nunn as your contributor. And then, of course, in 2022, you had right here. In 2022, you had Art Modell as your contributor. You had Dick Vermeil as your coach, and then you had Cliff Branch, RIP, as your senior. And then in 2023, you decided to have three seniors, but as a result, they would merge the coach and contributor together, which I wasn't a huge fan of, obviously. But at least we get at least one non-player at least we get one non-player a year. Right. It's better than none. But the rest of the photos just ones that I took in the Hall of Fame itself. I'm gonna just breeze through that just because there's so many of them to just
and
go with the induction ceremony.
Wrap it up after about 15 after,
Yeah. Okay. So here's Carl Eller.
Mr.
Yeah, this is me. I was exiting. Here's Carl Eller. I want to show you. Who's him.
Pushing him?
Oh, that's his wife.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I can't see. Maybe you can zoom in for us.
Sure. Here's Carl.
A little closer.
Yeah,
there we go.
Okay. Yeah, here's Carl, and there's his wife Molly. It was awesome seeing Carl. Here's a picture of the hall. This is a great shot. It's a shot you can have like a frame. Here's a little mascot.
There, or is he...
What?
Was Alan Page there?
Alan Page was not there. No. Carl was. Here's Jim Foster, Bengals Jim. I gave him a huge hug afterwards. I also saw Jeremy, the Bengals captain. He was so happy to see me, and he thanked me. I said, "Hey, you helped me through a lot, and you gave me the courage to keep pushing for Ken Riley." And I was almost a celebrity by these guys. It just felt so surreal. Like,
zoom in on him. Zoom in.
Here's Jim. Jim's a great dude. Here's his son Aaron that was with him. Jim's awesome. If you ever get a chance,
Jim is the guy in the glasses.
Jim's right here.
Okay,
that's Jim. He made this happen.
And that's his son in the white hat.
That's Aaron. Yeah, he's amazing. Jim is awesome. He is awesome. He rallied that entire base in southwest Ohio and northern Kentucky to put this guy in the Hall of Fame. This guy deserves so much credit, and so does that entire fan base, because people talk about, when it comes to the seniors, Hallie was a vote for the historians, Klecko was the vote for the voters, but Riley was the vote for the people. And I will always associate with that. And that's no disrespect to Hallie or Klecko. Those two are long requests. Whenever I associate Ken Riley with the Hall of Fame, I will always attribute it to the push that this man led. And I will always, and Ken will always thank him for that. His son, Ken. Both Ken and, Ken Riley himself. This right here was this huge Buccaneers fan. I wanted to take a picture of him. He was so excited. You could see how excited he was. You could see how excited he was for this, and he was excited. There's NFL Network, and here's Steve again, getting ready to hype people up for Zach Thomas. Here is Zach's bust that they showed off.
Yeah, I saw that on TV.
Getting ready for Ken Riley, and of course, here's his bust. That was when Ken the II had his speech. He mentioned Jim, so it's pretty cool to get your name. It's got to be amazing for him to get his name even mentioned. It reminds me of when Easley got inducted, and he thanked the guy Bob Copain, the guy from Minnesota, the high school teacher, because he's the one that actually got him in the Hall of Fame. He's the one that pushed for him, and that just feels humbling. People talk about the voters and all this stuff. When it's just an average fan like you or me, for instance, that actually does it, that feels a bit more personal. And of course, here's DeMarcus Ware.
What are you going to do with these? Are you going to put them on, or what do you want to do with them? These photos.
I'm going to put it all in an iMovie and narrate it.
But I'm saying that, like an online repository or website where people can just scroll through them.
I've been discussing that one myself, actually. I have been thinking about it. Here's some of the Jets fans getting ready for Klecko.
You have to put in a watermark, to copy protect them, right?
Of course, I wouldn't just let anyone take him. But here's Joe Klecko's. The fan base went absolutely wild for him. And here's Fireman Ed. He was right by me where I was sitting. And the entire crowd was like full of Jets fans because they played the previous night with the Browns, and they were just in the mood. Here's Steve again. He introduces everyone. Here's Chuck. Here's his bust, and there's his son Scott that did the speech for him.
Nice.
Here's Darrell. I don't know if I got a good look at his bust, but there he is.
It is 12:09, gentlemen.
Yeah. I'm just gonna speed run this.
Or why don't we just have another session where we can come back? Because at some point we need to close to a stop, and it's getting to that. You have what, 100 of those?
More than 100, that's for sure.
Yeah, we're gonna have to have it. We're gonna have to have another one.
We will.
Yeah.
Okay. You want to call it for a night, or do you want to
Well, summarize to get us to 15 after.
Okay. When they had Rondé give a whole shout for Tiki Barber, I screamed at the top of my lungs and ducked Tiki. And when I was also there, I also took photos with everything. Also with Joe Thomas's, there was a lot. I also spoke with this 80-year-old fan named Bob, who's had season tickets for 50 years. There's his granddaughter, and he said his most wanted guy not in the Hall of Fame with the Browns was Clay Matthews, which there's a picture of me with Chris Berman. I thought that'd be pretty cool. Here's also me with Steve Connell. He was also NFL Network. I went up to take a picture.
Mm-hmm.
This is where the parade was. This is where the NFL was founded, the exact site. This is a sign of like the Black Pioneers. There's a statue for the NFL draft. Almost done. This is a list of everyone that's played in the NFL's first 100 seasons.
Wow.
There's everyone from Tom Brady to, I guess, the third string punter, I assume. This is where I had dinner with some of the fans of the year. There's Paul, there's Ron, there's these fans of the year right here. There's Liz, Julie, Allie, Tyler, Ian, and Chris. I didn't get a good picture of Chris, but here's Chris, an old Dolphins fan. Here's another picture of Ian and Tyler.
Where did you eat dinner?
A place called Bender's. It's been around since 1902. That's some really good seafood. Bender's, like, think of Blender except with a B, and like the character from Futurama, like the robot from Futurama.
Nice.
Yeah. My friend Ron, he collects a lot of this stuff. He decided to, of course, because he knows I'm a huge fan of his, just get me an old Sporting News magazine with Matt Ryan on it. And I said, hopefully I make a push for him. I met a few friends at the airport, of course. Here's me with Morton Anderson, making the case for Gary and Anderson and Jack Manners and
There you go.
White Shoes Johnson. Here's Steve Atwater, who I saw at the airport also.
Broncos.
Yes. My dad was happy to see that. Here's Randall McDaniel.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize that was him at first. I was just another fan that he was speaking to this other person. And I took a picture with him, of course. Here's one of I want to zoom in a bit better. Here's Carl Eller. I took a picture of me with him. He was coming out of the bathroom, and I said, "We got to get Jim Marshall in, man." And I said that to Randall McDonald. I said, "Right now," he said, "Right now, the team in the state has been actually working on the matter at the moment." And I said, "Awesome, thank you so much." I took a picture of Andre Tippett. He was kind of mean at first. Like I had a photo up, about to take a photo. He actually snatched my phone out of my hand. I was scared as hell. Like, oh my god! And he gave it back. And I took a little bit. He apologized. He said it's water under the bridge. I told him about myself and everything. I don't have a picture of him, but I spoke with Ira Kaufman, told him about the people I want to see get inducted. He was really happy to speak with me. Told Peter King about it as well, and he was impressed that I told him about the 1800s guys, and hopefully I changed his mind. Yeah. And I want to close off with some other people I met. This guy named Ahmad Fareed from NBC. He was coming off of the game in Cleveland. That's the game where Tim Anderson fought with Jose Ramirez, and Anderson was knocked out cold. I gave him my resume and everything I got. We exchanged numbers. Got a picture with Ken Riley, Seth, because I saw this as like the biggest win. And there's someone in our group that I'm not going to say his name, but was very much against the idea of Ken Riley making the Hall of Fame. And in a way, Paul decided to take a picture to send it to him. So it's like, take that, dude.
There you go.
Also, I'll mention this too. There was also this one person that was comparing and looking down upon like people that were Bengals fans and that were kind of poo-pooing them and everything. So I like posting that as well because I said, take that.
Nice work, Vinny.
Here's a picture of me with a Lombardi trophy, and here's a picture of me with Paul. Yeah. Here he is. There I am. You might be wondering why I have the Braves hat. I have a friend in Canton who's a big Braves fan, and he is not really much of a sports guy, but he does like the Braves, so I decided to wear that hat for him. And here's Ron. He's all decked out in orange. He's a big Broncos fan. He's pushing hard for Randy Gradishar. You can see the Gradishar Pro Football Hall of Fame. Yeah. There's Paul, and there's me also right there with it. And I want to close us off on one huge thing. The day when I came back, Colin Cosell, who's the PA guy for the New York Mets, said that, why is my grandfather not in the Hall of Fame yet? I understand. I know you might have ruffled some feathers, but I'm going verbatim here. I'm not just off the top of my head, but his impact, and not just broadcast, but also the way the game grew because of him.
Yep.
And I said, not only does he deserve just the Rozelle Award, but I think his impact was so great, he deserves the bronze bust as well. He liked it, and everyone except for like Paul, because Paul's not too sure about broadcasters, but everyone that spoke to Colin agreed with him. But I was definitely the most vocal supporter. Yes, your grandfather absolutely deserves to make it. He meant so much to so many. And I even told him that when I was throughout Canton, I asked people the same question. Every single person agreed with me that he deserves a bronze bust. Every single person I spoke to.
Well done, Vinny.
And what I got out of it? A follow.
Well done. All right.
Not just a follow. He exchanged numbers. We spoke on the phone for a half hour. And on Monday, I'm going to the Mets game to meet him in person, and he's going to work something out for me.
Bravo, man. All right.
So yeah, he might just get me a job.
Good show.
And that, my friends, concludes my photos that I took at the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Well done, Vinny.
Nice job. Nice job.
I made sure to tell them also about Zenny 62 Media, what I've done for you guys and everyone else that I've worked with. I showed him my resume too. He cannot wait to meet me. He is again, I know I'm not trying to boast myself up, but he is so impressed by me and what I've been doing, and he knows that what I think is the right thing to do, and he's awarding me with this, and I can't thank him enough. So, Colin, if you're watching this, thank you.
And that will be this show. We'll talk, in the background. I just have to check on. Hold on a second, folks. NFL weekend coming up. We'll have a lot more videos and everything else. We'll be back. Subscribe to Zenny62 if you haven't already. Thank you for watching. And bookmark OaklandNewsNowBlog.com, Zenny62.com. Check out our new ZennyReport.com. Our football NFL draft blog, which will go to him. We will have an NFL Hall of Fame blog, which will go to him. So we're growing and we're doing all this. But right now, that ends our broadcast. Thank you all. Thank you, Jim.